Built on a brilliant idea, Last Oasis was set to shake up the survival genre with interesting combat systems, larger-than-life walkers, and a unique setting few had seen before. Hey there friends, it's Kodiak here, welcome back to Legacy Gaming. Today, after 2 years away from the game, we're diving back into Last Oasis, checking out a completely overhauled experience and breaking down if this nomadic survival MMO is worth your time. Last Oasis, probably a game you haven't heard much about over the past few years. It's been there, in the background, doing something, but in the last week or so, you might have noticed that the game is enjoying a small resurgence. Why is that, you may ask? Well, after season upon season of tweaks, adjustments, and ultimately a complete overhaul of the game's core systems, Last Oasis has entered Season 5. I'd say this is the 1.0 release of the game, but the devs are still considering things to be in early access. And you know what? That might not be such a bad idea. So here's the truth. I can't bury the lead because it's really going to shape our entire discussion today. Last Oasis, Season 5, this new overhauled, completely different game, is absolutely not worth your time. And honestly, it pains me to say so, because Last Oasis has all the potential to be one of the best survival games on the market, but as it was in the beginning, is now and ever shall be a train wreck. So where to begin? If you've never played Last Oasis, let me give you just a brief snapshot of the game. You play as a nomad stranded in the desert after some sort of world-ending event. I'd give you some background on that event, but the team pretty much gutted the entire mechanic tied to the actual lore of the game, so it's not really worth our time. It's a survival game, so you start by collecting wood, rocks, and fiber, craft some basic stuff, use that basic stuff to get slightly better stuff, and you know the drill. The real special sauce here are the walkers. Things start off small with walkers like the Firefly, but there are some truly incredible walkers in the game, vehicles that act more like mobile bases than anything else, or at least they used to function that way. Where Last Oasis took a sharp left turn is in its pacing and progression, which is so vastly different that new and returning players alike are pretty much starting from square one. In 2022, the game's progression system is completely based on PvE combat, taking on Rupus, Nurs, and giant frog monsters in order to get schematics which allow you to build, quite literally, everything within the game. The shift away from PvP-centric gameplay and onto a PvE-focused one is something the team has been talking about for ages, but experiencing it firsthand, well, quite frankly, it's dreadful. Schematics replaced a system called tablets, and schematics are the only way you can build anything in the game. Need to build some ammo for your ballista? Schematic. How about a single wooden wall for your base? Need a schematic for that too. How about a giant mechanized walker that will operate as a massive gun platform? Not only do you need a schematic for that, but you also need special schematics for its legs, wings, and everything else on board. The worst part about schematics is that they drop randomly based on the type of enemies that you kill or structures that you loot. The devs aren't stingy about this, but you pretty much have no direct control over your progression. It's all up to chance, and when I explain just how stacked the cards are against you, well then, you start to understand my pain. So schematics are essential, but how do you get them? Well, killing Rupu, of course. That's part of the game's new shift to PvE. Rupu, almost 2 years ago, were pretty much harmless enemies that were annoying to deal with, but hardly a credible threat. Now, 2 years later, the Rupu are so damn challenging, I can only surmise that they spent ample amounts of time learning under the tutelage of SEAL Team 6. Look, I like a challenge. I think most gamers do, but there is a difference between a well-designed challenge, one that's thoughtful and stimulating, and some devs that just took the sliders and cranked them up as high as they can go. That's what we're dealing with here. Rupu, and specifically Rupus that use turrets that are so accurate, so deadly, so damn relentless that skill isn't even part of the conversation anymore. This is the new Last Oasis, a test to see how you can take out one single camp of Rupu, turrets and all, and reap the benefits without losing 3 times more in the process. Simply put, the challenge isn't fun, and while I was lucky enough to play the game with a handful of great guys I met online, trying to tackle this solo, it's not possible. For all the additional things the devs have put into the game to give players more control over their walkers and weapons on those walkers, it doesn't matter because balance is, and probably always will be, one of the biggest issues within the game. To put this all into perspective for you, let me share one little factoid about Last Oasis. After a few days of Season 5 being released, the developers deployed their first new patch. In that patch, they increased walker HP by 750%. In my entire lifetime of playing games, probably 25 years or so, I have never seen a change so drastic. And you know what that tells me? A, the developers have no idea how to balance their game, and B, they didn't put the time or effort into testing their new version of the game before putting it out into the world. If I sound frustrated, that's because I am. I've spent more than 350 hours playing Last Oasis, hoping that the devs would continue to make improvements that make the game better. But the truth is, they've made it worse. Their big vision for this nomadic world is brilliant, and I will never take that away from them. But when it comes to the foundational systems that power the entire game, it couldn't be clearer that the devs have no clue. So if schematic farming and overpowered monkeys with aimbots sound frustrating, the team decided to pile it on with the introduction of a base maintenance system. On the surface, this isn't so bad. You have to continue to feed a resource chest with some basic materials to keep your base from decaying. The issue is this: the bigger your base and more crafting stations you have in that base, the more resources you need to prevent it from decaying. Now, I'm not just talking about wood, rock, and fiber, 3 things anyone can get with a little work. I'm talking rare resources, the things you can only get by venturing into the root boot camps, those same root boot camps that have SEAL Team 6 trained operatives. You see the problem here. This is compounded by the fact that you can no longer log your walkers off, a mechanic that has long been a staple of the game, giving players the freedom to log off and know that their stuff is all safe. Now, walkers need to live parked in a garage. Yes, you heard me right, you now need to build a nomadic garage for your pimped out walker. It's really just absurd, made more ridiculous by the giant garage door the team has added into the game. Maintaining your base is fine enough, I get it. You need a way to remove structures from the world, especially after people stop playing the game. But to exponentially make that process harder by requiring the most challenging resources to obtain, well, straight up, it's just not fun. That's really what this 2022 Worth Your Time review comes down to. If you were to ask me, hey Kodiak, is Last Oasis fun? I'd say no, it's not fun. It's a great concept, walkers are cool, always have been, but is it fun? No, absolutely not. When you look at the full range of content in the game and you consider all the things I've already mentioned, there's one final factor to consider: pacing. Don't get me wrong, Last Oasis used to be a grind. Collecting hundreds of thousands of tablets and unlocking research was a slog, but now the game is so ridiculously slow that you'll spend weeks just scraping by in the low to mid-tier research until you collect enough schematics, build up enough resources, ones not being used to maintain your base, and have enough time to get everything accomplished that you want. The sad truth is, I know there's more content out there. Hard maps aren't even introduced into the game, and most of the walkers are still gated behind this Season 5 reset. But nobody is going to spend the time to get that far because the base, the core of the game, is fundamentally flawed. This is made worse by the fact that one of the best ways to speed up your progression was by being part of a big clan. Well, now you can only have 6 clanmates on the same map for most maps in the game. As you progress from map to map, you might run across maps that support 12, 25, or even 50 clanmates on the same map at the same time. But those are PvP tiles, which quite frankly just isn't the direction of the game anymore. The map restrictions was a solution to a zerging problem that we don't really need to get into, but now, with only 6 clan members allowed on most of the starting tiles at the same time, you have a new problem. Again, pacing. To be honest, after days of playing the new Last Oasis for hours on end, I've barely been able to scratch the surface. The game has always had problems, but at least back then, 2 years ago, I could build cool walkers, load them up with weapons, and feel like a nomadic badass. Now I feel more like the world's last mechanic, keeping my garage up and running, doing repairs on ships that get blown to pieces, all the while trying to keep my garage stocked up with basic resources. It's a grind. I wish I could say Last Oasis is a game enjoying a well-deserved renaissance. You see a couple thousand people playing the game, you see it trending upwards, and you get excited because maybe, just maybe, it's coming back. But in reality, A free weekend mixed with some lukewarm interest about the game's complete overhaul of nearly every system, and this is what you get. Less than 5,000 concurrent players on PC, probably similar amounts on Xbox, and a population that will absolutely be back in triple digits in due time. The thing that made the game popular, its interesting directional-based melee combat, its impressive array of walkers, marvels of primitive technology, the ability to swing around like nomadic Spider-Man using a wrist-mounted grappling hook, have all been overshadowed by a myriad of bad systems, lazy execution, and ultimately, bad development. This is the final nail in the coffin, at least for me, when it comes to Last Oasis, as a game that's had all the promise in the world, but after nearly 2 years of active development, will inevitably waste away and be forgotten. If you found this worth your time review helpful or enjoyable, do me a solid and hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing. There are still plenty of big games coming out in 2022, and if you're looking for a new take on some of the year's biggest titles, we've got you covered. I also want to let you know that our 2022 Leave a Legacy charity event is set for Saturday, October 22nd. For a second year in a row, we've partnered with Connecticut Children's to help bring the joy of video games to kids at the hospital. Mark your calendar, set a reminder, and be sure to join us on Discord to stay up to date on everything regarding our upcoming charity event. The link, of course, is below. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.